I'm Sadie. I'm the host of She Persisted, a teenage mental health and life podcast. So I've been editing, recording, and producing podcasts for almost 2 years now. So this video is the most simplistic, professional way that I have learned to edit a podcast, and I'm going to show you how to do that from start to finish. We're going to optimize for professionality, high sound quality, and making sure that every minute of your podcast is entertaining and interesting for the audience member to listen to. This means no long pauses, awkward background noise, or parts of conversations that seem like they should have been cut out. So let's get started. So you've recorded your podcast. First thing we're going to do is make sure that's on your desktop. That means you might have to import it from an SD card. Maybe you recorded using QuickTime Player. Whatever you use to record, you're going to put that file on your desktop and name it something like Episode 1 Raw. Next, you're going to go ahead and open up Adobe Audition, and you're going to go to the Waveform tab. From there, you're going to import your audio file. If you have multiple guest audio tracks, we're just going to start with one. From here, you're going to zoom into a pause in the conversation. Maybe this is the beginning of your episode, the end, somewhere where there might be background noise, but there's no one actively talking. To get rid of any background noise that might be in your audio that maybe you won't be able to hear, but if your volume's on really loud, you'll pick up on, we're going to go ahead and do some noise reduction. You're going to press Shift-P or go to the menu, go Effects, Noise Reduction and Restoration, Capture Noise Print. Go ahead and push Enter to the window that pops up. If it tells you an error that you need to select a longer segment, find a longer pause and select that. You're going to go ahead and unselect that pause from your episode so that nothing in your episode is currently selected. You're going to do Command-Shift-P or Effects, Noise Reduction and Restoration, Noise Reduction Process, and go ahead and push Enter to that window that pops up. I wouldn't recommend changing any of these settings here because it just gets complicated and can interfere with the actual sound of your voice in this episode. You can repeat this step a few different times if it doesn't catch all the background noise or if there's different types of background noise. Maybe you have an echo, maybe you also have some rustling or static at some point, so repeat this as many times as necessary. Next, we're going to go ahead and make sure that your episode sounds smooth. We're going to get rid of any of the really harsh audio moments if you're talking too loudly into a mic or there's any disturbances like that. Go ahead and go to Favorites, Normalize to -0.1 decibels, and then Favorites, Hard Limit to -0.1 decibels. Now you're going to go ahead and save that audio as a new file. So File, Save As, maybe Episode 1 Sound Repaired. If you have multiple audio tracks, say this is an interview, you're going to go ahead and repeat this process with your other audio files. This also applies to you if you have an introduction or an outro that is not already included in your initial recording. If you have multiple tracks in your episode, say a back and forth between you and a guest where you recorded your solo episode in multiple parts, you're going to go ahead and merge the clips together at this point. However, if you have a standing intro that you use for every episode or a standing outro or background music, we're not going to add those at this point and just start editing the content. So if you have multiple tracks for your audio for the main content of the episode, we're going to go ahead and merge those now. You're going to go to the multitrack tab on Adobe Audition, create a new session, maybe episode 1. You're now going to import your newly edited audio files where you fixed all the sound issues. Overlay those. If you're lucky, or you use something like Zencastr, those audio files will already be at the exact timestamps and you just have to import them and put them at 00. However, if it's say from a Zoom audio or you each recorded separate audios, you're going to want to listen to the conversation and see where those pauses line up to make the conversation flow correctly. Here, you can go ahead and adjust any volume issues, say if one person's mic was louder than the others, or if it's just hard to hear yourself. Again, we're not adding any background music or standing intros at this point. Now you're going to export this audio. File, Export, Multitrack Mixdown, Entire Session. You can name this something like Episode 1 Not Edited because we haven't edited the content of the episode. Now we're going to go ahead and open Descript. You're going to create a new project and title it whatever you want, maybe Episode 1, the running theme for this video, and you're going to go ahead and drag your newly merged file into Descript. You don't need any of your old files, your original things, just the one you just exported. You're going to select Automatic Transcription and enter the number of speakers. Even if it's just you, but you've merged multiple audio files, that would be 1 speaker. If you have 2 different guests and then yourself, that would be 3 different speakers. Enter the number, identify the speakers within your episode, and then you can go ahead and start editing the content. It might take a few minutes to go ahead and transcribe the whole thing, but after that, you're ready to get editing. It's important once you start editing to make sure you're in edit media. This will edit the actual audio file versus edit text is just the transcription. So you're going to go ahead and listen to the entire episode through from start to finish. If you find any pauses, you're going to go ahead and drag those words closer to each other, but not exactly against each other because that sounds a little bit too edited. And then you're going to go ahead and edit out any content that's not applicable. Maybe you and your guest get off on a tangent. You can simply select that whole part of the conversation and delete it. If you plan on using this transcription on your website to increase views or kind of have those keywords like for me, mental health, teenage depression, teenage anxiety, show up for searchable results on Google, you're going to want to do another listen through of the episode, this time under edit text. You can fix any spelling errors, make sure that all punctuation is correct, and you can go ahead and export that as a text file. Back to the audio file. Now that you've fixed all of the content and the main part of your episode is good to go, we're going to export this and save it to your desktop. So now we're going to go back to that Adobe Audition multitrack file. You had any other audio from there, go ahead and delete it, and you're going to import your brand new file that we just exported from Descript. So at this point, if you have a standing introduction or you have any background music you want to add, this is when you're going to do that. You're going to go ahead and use the timestamps from Descript, which are super easy to find based on the conversation. Insert an ad, anything like that. Go ahead and do that at this point. After you've added all intros, outros, background music, and your episode is ready to go, you're going to go ahead and again go File, Export, Multitrack Mixdown, Entire Session. This is your final audio file for the episode. You're going to go ahead and save that to your desktop, maybe write episode 1 final, and we're going to go and open up Anchor.fm. Anchor is a great way to release your episodes, especially for people that are just starting out with podcasts because it's completely free. You're going to go ahead and click New Episode, upload your audio. It might take a minute or two to process, and you're going to go ahead and find a midpoint in your episode where the conversation flows easily. You can again go back to Descript to kind of just have a guideline as far as when that point might be, but if you've added an intro, it might kind of mess it up a little bit. Once you've found that midpoint, you're going to go Edit, Split, and save as multiple segments. The reason we're doing this is that Anchor allows you the option to include sponsor segments within your episode. Even if you don't have an actively running sponsor, if you do in the future, instead of having to go back and re-edit every single one of your episodes, it will automatically import your ad into those sponsor segments, so it's super easy to save you time in the long run. Anchor recommends using all 3, so go ahead and stick 3 in the middle of your episode, save, and go to the next step. Here you're going to add your title, description. I like to include all of my social media handles, a bio about the guest if applicable, talking points, and a disclaimer that this podcast episode is my property and can't be used without my permission. From here, you are good to go to schedule and release. It's important to remember that if this is your first podcast episode, it can take up to 3 to 4 weeks for Anchor to get your podcast approved by Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It will populate to Anchor immediately, but to get on all listening platforms, it can take a bit. After you have an episode already approved through Apple Podcasts and Spotify, episodes will populate almost instantly. So, it's great to have a trailer or a podcast episode that you can go ahead and send for approval before your hopeful launch date. So, that is all my editing tips from start to finish. I do this every single week, and after I've gotten a hang of it, it doesn't take me more than an hour and a half or 2 hours. I hope this was helpful for anyone who's getting into the editing game and really wants to have their podcast sound professional, well edited, and optimized for good sound quality. You can listen to She Persisted on all listening platforms, and also you can follow me on Instagram at ShePersistedPodcast, and head to my website, ShePersistedPodcast.com, to find all my other social media handles and also learn a little bit more about the show. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe to stay tuned for more editing tutorials and behind-the-scenes podcast tips.